Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Nicci Chats 2. For those of you who don't know me, I work with companies to help them leverage their sustainability activities to build their brands. And this is a weekly podcast that I host, which really gives a platform to women to help shift people's perspectives by sharing their stories. If you're interested in getting these directly to your inbox, I will share the link to subscribe to my mailing list in the comments afterwards. But today I am with the lovely Tulia Lopes, who interviewed me yesterday on her podcast. So we're doing this mutual podcast thing. Tulia is a communications architect, and she works specifically with women to help them break down barriers around leadership by using communication skills. And when I saw that, I just got so excited because it's something that I'm always encouraging people to do, to be bold, be brave. You've got all these beautiful skills on paper, now share them with the world. And Tulia actually helps you do that. So that's very useful. Tulia, welcome. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So firstly, you are originally from Brazil, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. Yeah.
Currently living in Germany. I'm very interested to hear that story and your journey as to how you ended up where you are today.
If someone had told me when I was leaving Brazil uh, over 30 years ago that I would stay in Europe, I would say, come on, that's not possible. But you can imagine that at those times, 30 years ago, to leave South America, it was a hurdle. It was very
Mm,
difficult.
mm,
And I had finished college. I was just a young architect. This is why I'm a communication architect. And I got the privilege to have a working experience in Spain
mhm,
at that time. So I landed first
mhm,
in Valencia, where I
mhm,
stayed 3 months. My plan was to stay 1 year. Then I went
mhm,
to Barcelona. And I used to say that I had the privilege to know Barcelona before the Olympic Games of 1992. And I had the opportunity to work in many of those projects for building up Barcelona to what you
mhm.
know now.
Oh, wow.
And
Mm,
make a long story short, from there, I went to Ireland to learn English with that idea to stay 2 years. I stayed 13. Then I went back to Barcelona. Then I went to Switzerland. And now I'm here. Okay. But how people might be asking, but what happened with the architecture and where's the communication here? Well, this process started in 2008,
mhm,
2009, when I was in Barcelona and I got into get to know Toastmasters International. And I get to understand about communication. And then for me, it was like a very
mhm,
interesting because I was trained to communicate through forms. Now, let me work on how to communicate verbally and non-verbally and be aware of the
mhm,
non-verbally mostly. And that really hooked me because I really buy as the best learning, right? You once you learn things and you start implementing and you see the difference. I got so excited that I started sharing with friends, and they started motivating me, saying, "You
mhm.
need to share this with people. You need to teach people that." And I would say, "Go to those masters," and people would say, "No, no, but I don't want that. I want to get to do this." So
Mm,
something that started in a very informal way became, as I say, my mission because I loved architecture and I
mm,
decided to be an architect when I was very young, 14. But I was always in a search. I had this feeling that I was always searching for something.
mm,
And when I started investing on learning how to communicate, to be in front of people, to really share a story and feeling good and confident about it, I realized that that was a big challenge for many people. And it was in 2014 when I was living in Switzerland. By that time, I was already giving some trainings
mhm,
to men, women, companies, groups. And that I realized that I had another very important mission here, which was not only focusing on my own development, even
mm,
when I was helping others, but that I needed to focus on women. And why? Because at the time in Switzerland, I organized an event called the AW Summit, AW is
Mhm.
standing for Assertive Women Entrepreneurs. My idea
Love.
was, because I was navigating in this entrepreneurs expat environment,
Mhm.
and I said, well, let's organize an event for women to share their stories. It was the only purpose. That it was
Mm.
women sharing stories. Two pillars, that's all. But I had already identified that there was a need of bringing this conversation publicly, because the profile of the women at the time in Switzerland, the ones I was communicating,
Mhm.
networking,
Mhm.
was pretty much like came to Switzerland, very high, highly qualified women came to Switzerland because the men got the big job with the big money, and they
Mm.
were to the normal process. You get settled, then I organize myself. But this I organize myself was a big challenge because they could not really position themselves in the market. So this is why they
Mm.
got into the entrepreneurship. And this is why, also why the entrepreneurship in Switzerland is very live. And I believe is
Mm.
one of the reasons is this, especially with women, is because they don't find a position in the market. The Swiss, they
Mm.
have a very good way of never saying no, but never opening doors. They talk out of you and don't get through. First is the language, then is something else and something else. Anyways,
Mm.
so with this event, it was really powerful, and I didn't have any expectation. I just like I want to have
Mm.
fun with this women's event. But then I realized there was another need there, that these women needed more support in terms of getting their message across. They were amazing stories, but they could have been much better if they would
Mm.
know how to express, how to position, how to share, how to craft those stories. So it was about that time that I decided that I more probably should focus more on women. I was very reluctant, to be very honest, because another thing
Oh, that's
here,
interesting. Mm.
I was one of those women who would say, "Oh, I rather work with men because women's too dramatic, too much
Mm. Mm.
emotional." And because I come from a family with a lot of women, so I have this. I said, "No, too much. Easy to work with men. Just go to the point." So, but I also learned with this and that your life and your message, right? In the sense that because these avoidance that I have towards working with women that I just really didn't want to,
Mm.
it showed me that I needed, because I also needed to work on myself in my feminine side, in my women side. And by working with them,
Mm.
understanding their challenge, their inner challenges, their fears, I could see myself. And I, for one, was one of those women that developed to be highly confident on facade, you know, very get going, hard.
Mm.
You never knew about my private life. Very extrovert,
Mm.
very like, getting people together, but you never knew about my inner feelings. And by
Mm.
working with those women, I kind of started softening myself and allowing myself to express my own feelings. So that is the whole thing that that making 30 years in about few minutes.
That's quite a journey. And I love what you said about this notion that you followed your passion initially, and your passion was architecture and you loved architecture, but you were still searching and there was still something more. Because I come across so many people who are going through that, particularly at the moment. I don't know if it's an age thing or if it's an environmental thing, what's happening around us in the world, but so many people are they're happy in their jobs. And some are obviously unhappy, but that's a separate group. They enjoy what they do, but there is this feeling of wanting something more, of this longing that I need more. and then jumping into that and actually facing your own challenges and going, this was not what I wanted, and something that I had actually specifically avoided, specifically working with women, and realizing that you have to face that. So Julie, I think something that, I mean, by my count, I'm going to assume you speak at least 3 languages, because there's obviously Portuguese, Spanish, there's English. Well, in fact, maybe 4. You currently live in
No,
Germany,
don't
so
count
you
the German. Don't count the German because
okay.
this is my biggest challenge in life. I
It's a big
cannot ever
challenge.
say that I speak German. Can kind of get by. Yes.
German is a very hard language. I tried to
Oh,
learn it a few years ago. It is very difficult. But I think, how do you think that speaking these different languages, and I know that when you're in a country and the language is different, it gives you a very different perspective. So how do you think being this multilingual and moving to, I mean, Spain, Brazil, the culture could kind of be similar, I suppose, depending on where you are in
yeah, yeah.
Brazil. But Ireland, Germany, I mean, a lot of the European cultures are very far away from the broad South American cultures. And I mean, I've experienced that coming from South Africa. I mean, I think we tend to have cultures that are quite, I mean, I felt very at home, even though in Brazil you do speak a completely different language. It really did feel like home to me. How do you think that gave you this insight into helping women, or didn't it? Was it just, well, these are circumstances that I find myself in and I'm just going with it?
I first find this is a privilege. It's a
Mm,
privilege to be able to have experienced all of that and bring me more because I really want always to expand that. Because when
mm,
you put yourself in someone else's culture, literally, you're there
mm,
and you have to adapt, you have to integrate if you want to do something. You cannot isolate yourself. Nowadays, we
mm,
have the privilege of using this platform where I can say most of my work I do virtual, but it's still when you're talking to the person, you need to understand where the person's coming from in the sense of her perception or his perception of the world. So that
mm,
adds value to you and also makes you feel more humble because when we are very much in our culture, of course, we tend to believe that everything we believe is the maximum truth, that
mm,
everybody thinks the same way. That's normal because that's the only thing you know that you have accessible.
mm,
And it's a big shock in the beginning when you see people perceiving things in a completely different way. And it's another challenge when you have to have a relationship with this person, maybe at work and in other circumstances that you have to share, that you have to work together, where your understanding of certain things are completely
mm,
different.
mm,
And trying to find this common goal, this common point of understanding is the big challenge, but it's the biggest uh, value that you can earn in your life as a person and as a professional because you kind of start questioning everything. It's not the sense of questioning, sense
mm,
of doubt, but questioning, am I observing and am I understanding this correctly in this context? Because in my context there, in my in Brazilian context, I would immediately react. I would immediately know how to react because
mm,
I've
mm,
lived with that reality, that belief. But when you are in someone else's reality, you really have to, is a constant reassessing and readjusting. And that doesn't also mean that you are not, you don't have a strong personality, that you are just trying to compromise all the time. It's not about that. It's about really understanding how you can navigate in an environment that is not so familiar to you. And of course, many things start getting familiar, but there is always something else to learn. So you become very more, I believe, more attentive. More attentive. Your ears are more attentive to the nuances of what people say, the
mm,
the way, and you start trying because we have our survival instinct very much inside us. And our
Mm.
brains, they're scanning the person even faster to try to get the information. Am I get this right? Because have to make sure that I survive this situation. So basically, it's this, and then for that, in falling to going to the communication
Mm.
as a profession, as I decided to go, it's a blessing. But at the same time, as I said before, when I embarked this journey of learning how to communicate, to express myself, but for myself, not even thinking of doing this professionally, and then having a background in architecture, I had this realization, as I said to you, wow, I've learned how to communicate through forms. Now I'm learning to communicate with words, which is even more challenging because
Mm.
I say I have a presentation talk that the title is like everybody talks, some communicate, and very few
Love
connect.
that.
And when
Mm.
we are talking to people, when we are with people, what we want, even if it's not consciously, what we want is connection, because
Mm.
our inner desire of every single human being is to be seen, to be heard, and to connect. So that is the beauty of what I do, that I believe that every person for me is a source of learning. I'm helping them, but they're helping me too.
Oh, that's such a wonderful analogy, and I've had a similar experience with a number of my clients where I've gone into situations where it's I'm coming to help you, and they actually end up helping me. Sometimes I think more than I help them, but I mean I just absolutely love what you're saying about how being exposed to different cultures feeds our level of understanding and our ability to operate within different contexts, because I think that's fundamentally to communications, and how to improve your communications and the way you communicate is connecting. If you're not
Mm,
connecting upfront, you are literally just talking. It's just a whole bunch of words, and people may or may not be taking them in. They may or may not even be listening to you.
absolutely. I have this beautiful, I can send to you this beautiful
Mm.
cartoon which exemplifies all of this of your perception of the world. It's like there is Picasso in one, and then Dali another one, is a
Mhm.
cartoon, and they are both looking at an egg. So an egg is an egg, right? But
Yes.
Picasso drawing is an egg, the same background, and the egg is squared, and Dali's egg is melting. So for me, it's an
Oh, I love
amazing
that.
metaphor of how you perceive the world. It all
Mm.
depends on your own experience. This is all why it's also so challenging in this multicultural environment to be able to get your message across. This is also important that so many people, when they are not really trained in preparing presentations and
Mm.
really to be speaking to people, to be influential in a good way. Okay, not manipulation. I'm saying good influence, because you want people to
Mm.
grow. It's always like you have to learn as much as you possibly can about your audience. Because at the end, my ideas can be great, but if my audience cannot understand, and not only in words, but the meaning, the feeling of what I want them to understand and feel, there's a block there. There's the glass
Mm.
that is not happening, and this is a big problem with especially people working in companies, big companies. They don't have time to prepare because everything, there's other priorities. So I can just make some notes, and I know my topic. I'm an expert on this, so I make some notes and I go there and deliver, and they don't get the job done. They don't get people motivated to follow their ideas. They don't get people to really, they don't build a team, and they don't achieve, or when they achieve, takes much longer to achieve
Mm.
because people are not really understanding what they have to do, and even not feeling so not connected with this person. Why do I have to do this thing that Tulia are telling me to do? I don't feel any connection with
Mm.
this. And that is the big thing, that, but it's the beauty when you manage, when you master that. It's your superpower.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you're saying about this whole notion of when you step into a leadership role or even a management role, how what you are doing shifts, and it
Mm,
stops being about, well, I wouldn't say it stops being about, but it's not so much about your technical skills, but it's about the other skills that are just as important: understanding people, connecting with them, building relationships with them, understanding your audience, who you're speaking to, what the best way is to communicate with them. Are you speaking to a group of architects where forms are the best way, or are you speaking to a group of communicators where we need words, we need visual language, we need a non-verbal language, and all of those sort of more subtle nuances? So what advice would you give? I mean, you gave a great piece of advice about knowing your audience. If very simple, straightforward, I come to you, I need help immediately. What is something that you could suggest that I can do from when I finish on this call to help improve my leadership style, my communication style, and how I engage and connect with my team, for argument's sake?
yeah. I believe the most people, when they understand they have some problems in their communication leadership, they have been very focused in their intellect, and they are frustrated because they know a lot, they
Mm,
have good intentions, but they this connection is not there. And the important thing is here, we have to learn how to bring what's here to here, is the head to the heart. And when you're in a corporate environment, it's very difficult to talk about heart
mm,
emotions.
mm,
But we are human beings. We make decisions based on emotions. I will connect with you through my feelings. If I can trust you, then I will check your skills.
mm,
That's my
mm,
first reaction unconsciously. When you get into the room in front of people, your brain is there doing the survival protection there,
mm,
scanning. I trust this person. Yes, I'm gonna at least listen to this person. So for that, we are not actors when we are in front of people. So you really need to get to know yourself. It's about this knowing yourself first. And if something's not working, usually people think, oh, it's my message. How I get this message there is always about there. The problem is out
mm,
there, right? And Stephen Covey from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has this quote. He says, when you think the problem is out there, that's the problem.
mm.
The problem is always
That's
with you.
wonderful.
Sorry for
Mm,
saying that, but it's good when you spot, I have a problem.
mm,
But this I have a problem is not like, Nikki is not understanding me. What's the problem that I have with Nikki here? That in focusing on you, no, I have to focus on myself.
mm,
And what would be my quickest advice for you? Well, the first is that you have awareness that you have a problem. It's good because we are always evolving. We always go through challenges. But the
mm,
first thing is here, identify what kind of problem do you think you have when you're in front of people. What is it? It's because you feel too nervous. It's because and then you stumble in your words, you lose your point, you get black.
mm,
Or it's because you come across very confident, but you see that people are bored to listen to you, or they kind of like, I'm just swallowing this because I have to. So the first thing is to assess what is happening around you, and then what do you want to happen around you. What exactly do you want to happen? Because then we have to assess your container, your
mm,
environment, and see what is where you are, where you want to go, and then find the tools to get there. Each person is different. This part of finding the tools is in fact the simplest one. Because if you say, oh, I need to structure my presentation better, I would say if you're very diligent and curious person, you can search in the internet and you find lots of videos, you find lots of things, books. You can do a self-learning and really learn how to craft a message very well. But the big problem here is the vessel to deliver this message is you. And that is the big
Mm.
thing. And we always have to work on us, because then the
Mm.
message will come from inside, from this part that I say, from this inside, that you know that your message is so valuable. It's not about you, it's about this message, this impact that you want to create to these people, that you know that your knowledge will really help those people.
Mm.
And then you will craft that knowledge in a way that to make sure that these people, this audience will understand. But first it starts from you, really finding this voice inside of you, and then calm, relax. Because I think being in front of people is a huge opportunity to give something positive to them, especially in this world that we are. I have I watched a video from Maya Angelou, who unfortunately died a few years ago. No, the
Mm.
American poetess, and
Mm.
she was this easygoing black woman with this voice that was beautiful.
Wonderful voice.
Yes,
Mm. Mm.
this voice and this smile.
Mm.
She was very, I don't know, witty or something. Very, very charismatic. And one day she was asked, because she spoke for thousands of people, right? And her interviewer asked her, but Maya, how do you come so easy go on stage in front of this thousand people? And you feel like as if you're you're in your kitchen or something like this, that you are home and you come there alone. And then she looks and said, alone? I don't come alone at all. I come with all my luggage, my backpacks, my experience, my people, my supporters, my guidance, everybody. I'm never alone. And that is what I give to
Mm.
them. Everything I have, everything I've been carrying with me. And that is, if it's one thing I would like to give to your community, it's this. When we're in front of people, you're there to give them everything. Everything. It's not really about you, because we are so self-conscious. Most women, especially women, is
Mm.
even the simple things like it's the dress, it's the hair, it's the earring, it's the nails. We get too many conversations in our door, in our mind, and we forget the most important thing, which is the message. You are only the vessel. Sorry,
Mm.
you are only the vessel. And then when you have the message, then people will look at you, but not
Mm.
before. And they will look at you
So beautiful.
before,
Mm.
if your message is not good enough. And then they will start looking at your dress, at your hair, at your earring. But if your message is not coming across, so they have to get distracted with something else, because they are not
Mm.
connecting with what you're saying. But when they connect with your message, it doesn't matter whatever you coming, you're wearing, whatever is, use your message. So that's the important thing. It's
Mm.
about you. Start
That,
with
and
you.
I think that's such a beautiful reframe around standing in front of people. You have an opportunity to give them everything, because so
Mhm.
often, I speak to people who, and I mean, I get nervous before I go on stage, before I give a presentation. I always do. And I've always said the day that I am no longer nervous is the day that I stop doing this, because it's the day that I actually no longer care. I get nervous because I
Absolutely.
care and I want to deliver something good and I want to do it well. But it's not this crippling, I can't do this type of nerves. It's that I just want this to go well and I want to connect with people. And so many people that I speak to do have this overwhelming fear. And am I being judged? Are people looking at me? Are they
Mhm.
going to look at my hair, my earrings, what I'm wearing? And when you just reframe it and say this is such an opportunity to give people everything, to be a vessel to deliver a beautiful message, all of a sudden those, I almost want to use the word trivial things, no longer matter, and people will connect with you and they won't care.
If I can add just one thing to that, that you said is very important, is this nervousness is good because it's our sensors that you're going to something important. And but that is your focus, is I have an important message to give. And I know I'm nervous about it, but I know I have to focus on my message. And when you are there on stage, if you're focused on a message, because people are putting faces, right? You see all those those faces to you, and some faces are nodding at you. That these are your good faces. I say some faces are. And what happens is, if you are focused on yourself, when you see those faces that are doubting or worrying, you immediately lose your ground, because you immediately think, is with me. What did I say? But it's me. You put yourself, is I, Tulia, am not pleasing that particular person, right? And but when you focus on a message and you see those faces, you can even say, Nicci, did I say something that made you think differently? And also, if you don't have this opportunity because of if the presentation you're giving, sometimes you cannot interact with the audience, right? You just move on to the nodding ones. I always say, like, these are the ones that give you energy. You need that. You need those people in your audience. This is why also, before getting on stage, ladies, network, get to know some people, get to know some faces, because when you stage, you point them, you find them, and you nod at them because they already connected with you before. They
That's
will
good
be there nodding at you. And they are the ones that will give you the energy you need, because we need this energy of approval when we are speaking. We need that. And if everybody is facing us like, it will destabilize us because we're just human beings. But even if I know my message is important, but if I have all these eyeballs at me looking doubt, I will start doubting myself. That is very difficult. So, but the important thing is, when you are focused on your message, overcoming that is easier, because even if that will hit you immediately, someone looks with you in the face, you feel immediately, but then you switch to the nodding ones and continue. And then eventually afterwards, if you want, you can go to that person and talk to, like, listen, when I was giving and talking, I saw that you were really, you had a serious face, and I bet you, in most of cases, 99%, they would say to you, oh, you know what? Because when you said that, I remembered. It's always about something this person remembered. It's never about you. And we are in this, when you have everything here in your head, when you are not trained, when you're not prepared, you think it's about you. You take it personally, and that destabilizes you. So this is super important, especially if you're a woman leading meetings, if you have to deal with conflictive conversations, if you have to negotiate, you have to, in a way, to think, I'm the vessel here. I have a goal. I have this message to come across, and that's my focus. Put yourself as if you are seeing yourself outside. It's outside yourself to be able to focus and continue doing what you plan to do. It's not easy, but it can be done. It's about practice, learning and
Absolutely. And
practice, practice and
that
practice.
is that is the consistent message that I've gotten, and certainly from people like yourself that I have spoken to, about any sort of public, let's call it a public speaking type role, whether it's leading a meeting, whether it's actual standing in front of a stage or in front of people on a stage at a conference. There's this very strong message of preparation, and it's consistent. And I mean, the piece of advice that you gave around connecting with people beforehand and creating your allies in the room, I mean, that's wonder. I mean, I've never heard that before. It's incredible advice and highly recommended as far as possible. But there's this constant message of being prepared, don't just, especially, I mean, obviously you have day-to-day meetings with your team, but if you're not connecting, reflect on why you're not, and maybe prepare differently. Maybe try and prepare. Don't just show up for your day-to-day meetings unprepared. Think about what you want to achieve. Think about how you're communicating it, how you're coming across, and who are your allies in that room that can support you and that can back you up and help you deliver this message.
And I have something to add here as a tip for your audience. As a speakers, I've noticed I organize my events, but also participate in other people's events. And many want to be the first one, of course. You have to be a very powerful speaker to open an event. And many want that opportunity because you're the first, everybody will remember you. And the last one is also a strong one. And I would say, like, if I'm not the first, I'd rather be the last. Or if I'm in between, it's okay. But the thing is, no matter where you are, whether you're the first or the last, I always recommend my clients and students go there from the beginning and be there for every single speech and make notes. Because if you, when you come on stage, you manage to add value from what you learned throughout the day with Nikki, with Jane, with Peter, with someone, and add that to your presentation, you will be really a star in the sense of you will show that you are present and you are paying attention and you are also praising your colleagues indirectly in a very positive way. And that is one thing that I, even negotiations and in meetings, be there, be observant, and be observing people, understand the dynamics of the environment. Because I've seen many events, speakers coming few minutes before their presentation and leaving just after. Okay, some days we have to do that because we have other commitments, but if you don't miss the opportunity to get to know the people in that event, in that container, and bring that to your presentations. Bring what was said before. A joke was said before. Can you complement that joke, adding something else? And that only it will enrich your speech, but also the connection with the audience. Because if they were already connected with these people and you bring these people, see this the luggage, you bring these people
You're
to
like,
your own presentation, also shows that you are in a way super confident and comfortable with yourself, that you are not afraid of sharing others' knowledge within your own space. Because this is another thing, Nikki, you probably experience that with professions sometimes, where people refrain from sharing things because they feel like, "Ugh, they're going to
yes.
get my
Mm,
idea." I said,
mm,
"Oh
mm,
my goodness, this is such a limiting belief, right? Because the more our ideas is spread, the better." And I always say, like, if someone takes your idea and improves it, well, you were lucky, but the person was already ahead of you and could see
mm,
that that could become something better. But that's the way life is, and nobody will never
mm,
deliver the same as you do. So this is also important. Why it's so important that you know how you want to come across when you're
mm.
delivering your message.
That's wonderful. And there's actually more and more scientific studies and evidence to back up this notion that creativity now no longer happens in isolation. We all have this
Mm,
idea of the creative genius, probably largely from movies, that disappears into their cabin in the woods and they come out with this incredible idea that changes the world. And there's actually now scientific evidence to back up the fact that creativity happens in groups and it happens in focused conversations and it happens in connection, and it doesn't happen in isolation. But I also love what you said, and there's this constant message that's coming through in what you're saying around looking for opportunities, always looking for opportunities that will help, I mean, without sounding selfish, but position you as an individual as a better leader, sharing other people's ideas, connecting with them, listening to them. What opportunities do those present to you as a person? Keep looking for them, finding those allies, connecting with people who are going to be in your audience. How can I improve? What is the opportunity here? There's this constant lovely message of look for these opportunities, find them, and then leverage them to improve yourself and to improve your own leadership style and your own talking points, your own way of being in the world.
Mhm. Absolutely, and this falls in what you said about creativity. Our growth doesn't happen on our own. We cannot self-coach, right? We need
Mm,
others, and as I say, like creativity comes from chaos. It's where you have to be
mm,
creative. It's so when everything is working so
interesting.
fine, no. It's when the chaos is there that in
Mm,
architecture you always said that obstacles are amazing opportunities to bring creative solutions. So that's it. When there's chaos, you have to put your mind to work. And the same as it with
mm,
people. When there are different opinions, with challenge opinions, that is what makes you to grow. It's not when everybody is nodding at you. It's when you're being challenged, when you're in situations that are difficult, that force you to see different perspective, force you to understand that an egg can be squared or melting, and it is still an egg in the person's view. And you want to force me to say that eggs are that shape. So, and we have to get
mm,
into a common ground. So this is why you need people around you. This is why you need to interact with people in doing your presentations, before your presentations, because they are the ones who will give you the immediate feedback if your perception of their world,
mm,
because you're giving the message to them, is relevant first to them. Because I
mm,
can have brilliant ideas, as another quote from Leah Cocker, can have brilliant ideas, but if I don't get my message across, my ideas don't get me anywhere. And
mm,
it's the same, and like my audience is my thermometer. When I'm delivering a message, I am seeing it. I am a kind of,
mm,
like I say, I'm a kind of conductor. In like as in a music,
mm,
I have prepared my music. I have prepared what kind of emotions I want to. The your presentation is in a flow. It's not flat, because it's flat is boring. It needs
mm,
to bring, as in music, it brings up, makes you down and up again, and you want to finish in that climax. So you're there with your message. And if this is not happening, something in your music is not really
mm,
getting there. Your notes are not in the right place. So that your people, so you need them. You need people. You need them to assess and reassess. And the more you do, the more humble you become, because you get to know that, yes, you know a lot, but you still don't know enough, and you never will. And that is the good thing, because we keep evolving. Because who wants to be around that those people that say, you start saying something to them and they say, yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. And these people usually never get anything done because they know everything. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
mm,
Not listening at all. Huh? So, and but also this can be something that is related to lack confidence. So I'm not open to
mm,
really discuss different perspective, because makes me feel insecure. I have this, I know this, and don't move me from this, because then I am very nervous. I don't know how to navigate
mm,
beyond that. And that is the process that we all need to go through and beyond. And I believe, for me, that's why I got so passionate about what I do, that communication is the key. And you see my profiles everywhere. I always say communication is the key for everything you want to achieve in your life, because it is. We are, as human beings, we are the ones who use verbal communication to
mm,
interact. But verbal communication is beyond words, because we
mm,
have the non-verbal that speaks more than the words, and many nuances in between. And we are connecting this global environment, as we said before, even more challenging, even more challenging because our perceptions of the world are different. So we need to understand, to learn how to read it between the words.
Mm.
And for that, we have to be humble. We have to be really, I am here as a constant student
Wonderful.
and listening, especially if you're a leader, your job is to listen,
Mm.
to listen and guide. And that is what you have to do.
Mm. Tulia, this has been amazing. It has been so interesting talking to you, and I have learned so much. I'm actually going to go back and listen to this again and make a lot more notes because it's difficult to write and listen, but it's been so fantastic chatting to you. Where can people get hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think nowadays is LinkedIn.
Mm.
Yeah, we are there on LinkedIn. You search my name, Tulia Lopes, my profile, and I wanted to give something to your audience. Tell them to get DM me. Hi, I'm from Nicci's, and which is which is this. I did a just to finalize. I think you have your time already. And I did this challenge myself, 30 days
Mhm.
challenge in how to break bias at work using effective communication based on the leaning research and McKinsey research. And that was a huge eye opener for me. I did it as a matter of curiosity. I wanted to know a little bit more about biases. And every day I went live, taking their research and analyzing and talking about it. And
Wow.
women and men, but women, there's so much there we have to be aware of that is in front of us, all these glasses that we are
Mm.
not really aware. Some, as I say, some are visible, some are invisible, some are imaginary, and there are some which I find the most dangerous ones are the self-inflicted ones, the self-inflicted glasses that we put
Mm.
around us. So I
Mm.
want to give the copy of that document, that compilation, for you to share with your community because I think
Thank
there's
you.
just some
Mm.
pinpoints there, but I think it helps to start thinking on that matter in a different and take it seriously. Because I also
Mm.
in this research I realized that companies have bias training in the companies, but
Mm. Mm.
it's never really changes anything because it's a hard thing. And they say that it's very difficult to stop bias to eradicate biases, but you can interrupt them if you're aware and knowing
Oh,
it's
yes.
happening in
Mm.
a moment in time. And that's a good start. And that is what I'm trying to advocate now, that we become aware of those and that we become a voice to
Mm.
stop them. And then we both, because we will both benefit when we stop having so many biases in the workplace.
Oh, that sounds absolutely fascinating, and thank you very much. I will probably be sending you a DM straight after this to get my
Awesome.
copy. But
Yes,
please,
and then you can
everybody,
distribute there. Yes.
I will. Thank you. Please do connect with Tulia. As you can see, she's an incredible individual to speak to, and just so many fascinating thoughts and ideas. Tulia, thank you so much for being here and for your time and for being a guest on my show. And I think we've got a lot more conversations that we need to have. So hopefully, we will be doing a follow up soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and for those who are joining us live or those who are watching the recording. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will be in touch with you soon. So enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, everybody, and Tulia, thank you once again. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for having me.